Offset has finally admitted he was low-key plotting on CardiB and Stefan Diggs' relationship. And let's be real, this man has been moving pressed for over a year now. Ever since Cardi started stepping out looking unbothered, Offset's energy shifted. Now, with Cardi and Diggs reportedly done after that Super Bowl chaos, people are asking the real question. Did Offset just play the long game and win? Let's rewind this whole saga back to where it really started, because you can't understand where Offset is sitting today unless you look at what he once had in his hands, and how he fumbled it. February 2017, Super Bowl 51, Houston, that's where the spark first lit up. Offset locked eyes with CardiB during the big game weekend, and that link-up wasn't random. It turned into studio time almost immediately. They jumped on the record lick, and the chemistry wasn't just on the track, it was obvious. The moment that song dropped, social media detectives went into overdrive. Comments were flooded. Dating rumors were everywhere. And by September 2017, it was already official behind closed doors. Here's the twist most people didn't know at the time. Cardi and Offset were already married. No celebrity wedding. No designer dress. No press. No invite list. Just the two of them inside their Atlanta bedroom, making it legal, quiet, private, locked in. Meanwhile, the world thought the proposal at the Power 99 show in Philly that October was the big moment. Offset got on one knee in front of thousands, diamond ring shining, crowd screaming, but that public proposal? That was theater. They were already husband and wife. Then came the chaos. December 2017, barely months into marriage, videos started surfacing. Offset allegedly entertaining other women. Screenshots of explicit messages leaked. The internet went nuclear. Cardi didn't immediately walk away. She addressed it calmly on social media, basically saying she would handle her business on her own time. She chose to stay. July 2018. Their daughter, Culture, was born. For a moment, it looked like things had stabilized. The public saw family photos, happy captions, unity. But behind the scenes, the cracks never fully healed. By December 2018, Cardi went live and dropped the bombshell. They were separating. She said they had grown out of love, but let's be honest, everyone knew infidelity was the elephant in the room, and that's when Offset went into full public redemption mode. Rolling loud. Cameras everywhere. Cardi performing. Offset storms the stage holding a massive Take Me Back sign like it was a rom-com finale. Only problem, Cardi wasn't buying it. She curved him publicly. In front of the crowd. In front of the industry. In front of the world. Still, that wasn't the end. By February 2019, after apology tours, therapy promises, and what he claimed was personal growth, they were back outside together at the Grammys, smiling, coordinated outfits. Acting like the storm never happened, Cardi later said therapy played a big part in the reconciliation. She talked about maturity, about trying again for family, but the cycle didn't stop. September 2020, Cardi files for divorce in Atlanta. Court documents cited the marriage as irretrievably broken. She requested primary custody of Culture. This time it looked serious. Then somehow, once again, they reconciled. Another child came into the picture. Another chance. Another reset. But the pattern? It never truly disappeared. Fast forward to now. Cardi moving independently. Offset watching from the sidelines. Then Cardi linked up with NFL star Stefan Diggs, and suddenly, Offset's behavior reportedly shifted again. Subtle tweets. Cryptic posts. Liked comments. Behind-the-scenes tension. Now, after the Super Bowl situation that reportedly ended things between Cardi and Diggs, the timing looks interesting, because if Cardi is single again and Offset has been quietly plotting, people are asking, was this coincidence? Or was this strategy? Offset has always moved emotionally when it comes to Cardi. Public stunts, grand gestures, big apologies. But this time, it feels different. Less loud, more calculated. And that's what makes this twist so dramatic. After years of breakups, reunions, therapy, scandals, divorces filed and withdrawn, are we watching the beginning of another round? Or is this the final chapter? One thing is certain, the Cardi and Offset saga has never been simple. It's been messy, passionate, chaotic, and headline dominating from day one. And now, with Stefan Diggs reportedly out of the picture, Offset might see an opening. The real question is, does Cardi? Because history shows she forgives. But history also shows she doesn't forget, and this time, the entire culture is watching closer than ever. Stay tuned. The cheating allegations didn't slow down, they escalated. New rumors kept surfacing, and by that point, it looked like CardiB was absolutely exhausted. Publicly, she tried to keep composure. Privately, the pressure was stacking up, but then October 2020 arrived, her birthday, and just when the internet thought the divorce was sealed, Cardi and Offset were suddenly spotted together again. Not just together, kissing, laughing, moving like none of the courtroom talk ever happened. Within weeks, Cardi officially withdrew the divorce filing. She later explained that they had talked things through behind closed doors. No lawyers, no cameras, just conversations. According to her, they hashed it out the old-fashioned way by sitting down and chopping it up. Then September 2021, their son Wave was born. For a stretch after that, the family image looked solid: photos, birthday parties, coordinated fits, public affection. It appeared like they had finally figured it out. But appearances can be deceiving. Fast forward to December 2023. Cardi jumped on Instagram Live and dropped a calm but heavy truth bomb. She said she had actually been single for a while, quietly, no announcement, no drama rollout, just done. She admitted she was drained, tired of the toxicity, tired of the cycle, tired of repeating the same emotional lesson. Now here's where it got interesting. On New Year's Eve, the two were seen together again. Immediately, the blogs went into overdrive. Reconciliation? Another reset? Round 4? But Cardi shut that down fast. She made it crystal clear it was friendly energy only. No romance, no secret comeback, just co-parenting vibes. Then July 2020 for hit, Cardi marched back to court and filed for divorce again, this time seeking primary custody and child support. It was direct, it was serious, and it didn't look like the temporary move. And then came the shockwave the very next day. Cardi revealed she was pregnant with their third child, Blossom. By September 2024. Blossom was born. Now pause right there. 3 kids. Multiple reconciliations. Therapy attempts. Public apologies. Divorce filings withdrawn and refiled. And through all of it, one consistent issue remained: cheating. Every breakup traced back to the same root. Allegations that Offset had been unfaithful since 2017 and never fully stopped. Cardi didn't just describe it as heartbreak. She said the stress affected her physically, especially while she was pregnant. She described it as traumatic, not just emotionally painful, but something that impacted her body. She had given him another chance in 2019, another in 2020, therapy, conversations, resets, public forgiveness. And every single time, the same storm rolled back in. By late 2024, something shifted. Cardi wasn't entertaining that cycle anymore. Instead of crying on live, instead of explaining herself, instead of defending her marriage, she started stepping out differently. And this is where the storyline flips, because Cardi didn't just move on quietly, she stepped into a whole new arena. Enter Stefan Diggs. When CardiB began getting spotted with NFL wide receiver Stefan Diggs in fall 2024, the entire narrative around her divorce changed overnight. This wasn't just about a failed marriage anymore. This became about a woman walking away from chaos and stepping into something fresh, publicly, confidently, unapologetically. The first major sighting that had everyone talking happened in November 2024. Cardi and Diggs were seen together at a New York Knicks game, courtside, comfortable, laughing. The cameras caught it. The blogs posted it. The timeline exploded. At that moment, Offset stayed silent. No tweets, no rants, no cryptic captions. But silence doesn't always mean peace, because insiders started whispering that behind the scenes, Offset wasn't taking it lightly. and from that point forward, the tension became less about a divorce and more about ego. Cardi wasn't just single, she was glowing, she wasn't hiding, she wasn't explaining, she wasn't begging for reconciliation, she looked free. And when a woman who's been in a messy public cycle for years suddenly looks free, the man she walked away from feels that shift. The dynamic changed instantly. Before Diggs entered the picture, Offset could always assume there was room for a comeback. History showed that every time things collapsed, there was a reset button, but this time, there was a new player in the game, a professional athlete, a different lifestyle, a different energy, a different league, literally, and that's when Offset's behavior reportedly started telling a louder story than his words ever did. Subtle posts, strange timing on social media, like comments throwing shade, behind-the-scenes conversations making their way to blogs. He wasn't publicly crashing stages anymore, but the energy? It wasn't calm, because watching your ex step into something new after years of forgiving you hits different, especially when the public is applauding her for it. Suddenly, the divorce storyline wasn't just about cheating anymore. It became about pride, about territory, about whether Offset was really ready to see Cardi move on for good. And that's exactly where this saga turns from messy romance into strategic chess, because once Stefan Diggs entered the frame, Offset wasn't just dealing with heartbreak, he was dealing with competition. And that's when the real plot thickens. Stay locked in. The ink on the divorce paperwork wasn't even fully dry. Everything between CardiB and Offset was still fresh, still sensitive, still headline heavy. And maybe, just maybe, there was a quiet assumption floating around in blog circles, in group chats, maybe even inside Offset's own thoughts, that this Stefan Diggs situation was temporary, a rebound, a distraction, something that would fizzle out on its own. But it didn't fizzle. It escalated. By February 2025, Cardi and Diggs weren't hiding. They were amplifying. Valentine's Day weekend in Miami, spotted together. Then more club appearances in New York, VIP sections, close proximity, comfortable body language. The message? This wasn't random. Rumors exploded that Cardi might be expecting again, but she jumped on Instagram Live and shut that down immediately, calling the speculation ridiculous. Offset stayed quiet through all of it. No explosive tweets, no public meltdowns, but that silence? It had a deadline. And that expiration date was approaching fast. By April 2025, denial wasn't even an option anymore. Cardi was seen wrapped up with Diggs at Coachella. Cameras caught every angle. And then came the clip that set the internet on fire, footage of Cardi giving Diggs a full lap dance at a New York nightclub after a Vibes Cardi concert. That video didn't just circulate. It dominated your timeline, your For You page, group chats. Even aunties who barely follow CelebrityDrama saw it. Cardi captioned the night, "What a night. Started good, ended better." Translation? She was outside and UNBOTHERED. And Offset definitely saw it when a fan jumped into his comments teasing him, saying he must be punching the air. Offset responded quickly, "I'm happy for her." On the surface, that reads mature, supportive, calm, but context is everything. The speed of the reply, the tone, the double exclamation marks, and what followed after, that wasn't peace, that was restraint. Meanwhile, Diggs went on Instagram Live and confirmed he was not single, but carefully avoided mentioning Cardi by name. Still, nobody needed clarification. By May 2025, Offset's I'm Good mask slipped. He appeared on the Joe Budden podcast and made comments that set social media on fire. Without directly naming anyone, he said none of his exes had ever leveled up after leaving him, and the way he said it, there was no room for interpretation. He basically stated that every situation he's seen where someone left him, it didn't result in an upgrade. He implied he had never witnessed an ex go higher after walking away. He didn't say Cardi's name. He didn't say Stefan Diggs' name. He didn't have to. The internet connected the dots before he finished the sentence. and then came the phrase that spread like wildfire across blogs and fan pages, the unseasoned version. That line became the headline. From Instagram gossip accounts to major entertainment outlets, everybody was dissecting it. Memes, reaction videos, think pieces, because what people heard was this: Offset was calling Diggs a downgrade. Offset was positioning himself as the standard, the blueprint, the irreplaceable one, and he said it on one of the biggest hip-hop platforms out there, fully aware that every clip would be chopped, reposted, and amplified within minutes. This wasn't subtle shade. This was calculated messaging. The timing made it louder. CARD, I was publicly thriving, moving freely, showing chemistry with someone new, and instead of silence, Offset chose to assert dominance in words. The narrative shifted. Again, now this wasn't just about a divorce. It wasn't just about cheating history. It became about ego, image, status. Because when a woman you've repeatedly hurt starts looking happier somewhere else, the conversation becomes about pride. Offset's comments sparked debate. Was he genuinely unbothered? Or was he watching a situation spiral beyond his control? And the irony? For years, Cardi had been the one publicly forgiving. Now she was the one publicly glowing. Meanwhile, Offset was defending his legacy on PODCASTS. And once those clips hit the internet, the storyline was officially in overdrive. Because if he truly didn't care, why speak? Why draw comparisons? Why define who leveled up and who didn't? That's when people started whispering something louder. Maybe this wasn't about happiness. Maybe this was about losing control of a narrative he once dominated. And once the public senses jealousy, the pressure multiplies. Because now the question wasn't whether Cardi moved on. It was whether Offset could handle it. And from that point forward, every post, every appearance, every lyric, every interview became evidence in the court of public opinion. The saga wasn't cooling down. It was heating up. And the next move from either side was guaranteed to shake the timeline again. The backlash was instant. And it was thunderous. The moment clips from that podcast started circulating, social media went into overdrive. Commentary channels, blog pages, reaction accounts, everybody weighed in. DJ academics took to X and openly said Offset was losing the public perception war. His take: Cardi had stepped into a new chapter with a professional athlete. While Offset looked visibly bothered watching it unfold, that post alone ignited another firestorm. The audience split clean down the middle. One side applauded Offset's confidence. They called it alpha energy, said he was standing on his name, defending his status, reminding people who he is in the culture. The other side? They weren't buying it. They argued that a man whose repeated cheating had been exposed over multiple years with multiple women couldn't now flip the script and label himself the upgrade, especially when his own actions were the documented reason Cardi walked away. And then June 2025 happened. Cardi and Stefan Diggs didn't just keep appearing together, they went public. Officially. Instagram posts. Clear couple energy. No ambiguity. No hiding behind angles or blurry footage. And here's the detail that made it sting even harder: the divorce proceedings were still active in court. At the same time Cardi was posting her new relationship, Offset was reportedly requesting spousal support. Let that image sink in: a soon-to-be ex-husband asking for financial support, while his ex-wife is debuting her new man to millions of followers. No matter how you slice it, that's a brutal headline. Instead of letting it breathe, Offset added fuel. He posted what many interpreted as shade directed at Cardi and Diggs on X, then quickly deleted it. And that delete, that said more than the post itself. Because deleting something shows hesitation. It shows awareness. It shows that somewhere in the back of your mind, you know the reaction isn't going to land the way you hoped. It looked emotional. Diggs reportedly responded. Those specifics of his clapback didn't dominate the reports. Still, the tension was undeniable. Offset then pivoted to TikTok, airing frustration in a way that felt less polished and more reactive. By this point, the narrative had evolved. This wasn't just about heartbreak anymore. It looked like pride-taking hits in real time, but then August 2025 shifted the tone again. Offset sat down with Ebro and surprised everyone. No slick comments, no coded sports metaphors, no comparisons. He said plainly that he messed up his marriage with Cardi, took responsibility, put the blame on himself, admitted he had something real and mishandled it. It was the most direct accountability he had shown publicly. And for a moment, the noise paused, but context matters. Because that confession landed at the exact same time Cardi was visibly thriving with Diggs' public appearances, smiles, chemistry, momentum. And that timing made people question the sincerity. Was this genuine self-reflection? Or was it regret triggered by watching someone else enjoy what he once had? That became the central debate. Was Offset sorry because he had done the internal work? Or sorry because the reality of losing Cardi permanently had finally hit, amplified by the fact that she wasn't crying over him anymore? There's a difference between remorse and reaction, and the public could feel that distinction because when accountability shows up only after your ex looks happy with someone else, it can blur the line between growth and jealousy. Now, the conversation wasn't just about cheating history. It became psychological. Was this about love? Or about ego? Was this about healing? Or about losing control of a narrative he once dominated? The culture began dissecting every word, every interview clip, every social media post, every public appearance, and then another shift loomed on the horizon. Because when an artist processes emotion, they don't always keep it in interviews, they take it to the studio. And once Offset stepped back into the booth, people knew the next chapter wouldn't be subtle. Lyrics hit harder than tweets, verses linger longer than deleted posts, and if he was about to start putting these feelings into music, the volume on this saga was about to go up another level. The question wasn't whether he would respond. It was how loud he was about to say it, and once those vocals drop, the timeline might not survive the impact. If the podcast comments and the deleted tweets were light swings, the music was the knockout punch, because once Offset stepped back into the booth, there was no more ambiguity about where he stood emotionally. On October 31st, 2025, Halloween night, Offset shock dropped an album titled Haunted by Fame. Even the title felt loaded, a man claiming to be haunted, not by ghosts, but by celebrity, by success, by the very spotlight that elevated him and, according to his own narrative, cost him everything at the same time. But one track in particular detonated across the internet. No sweat, that record transformed what could have been a personal music release into another explosive chapter of the CardiB Offset Stephen Diggs saga. The lyrics were not subtle, they were pointed, they were deliberate, and they were aimed directly at two specific people. One line instantly dominated headlines. How you leave Jordan for Rodman? There was no room for interpretation. Offset cast himself as Michael Jordan, the GOAT, the franchise player, the generational force who defines the era, and, in that same breath, he positioned Stephen Diggs as Dennis Rodman, talented, flashy, impactful in his own right, but never the face of the franchise. The metaphor wasn't layered in poetic mystery. It was blunt. Offset wasn't just acknowledging Cardi had moved on. He was arguing she downgraded. He was declaring on a fully produced, mixed, and commercially released track that Diggs could never compete with him, that Cardi traded a cornerstone for a role player, that the decision didn't make sense in the hierarchy of greatness. And because it was music, not a tweet, not a podcast clip, it carried permanence. Streams don't disappear like deleted posts, lyrics live. But that wasn't the only bar that had people stunned. Another line hit even deeper. How you married and still giving birth? That lyric shifted the tone from competitive bravado to raw personal exposure. It directly referenced the fact that Cardi became pregnant by Diggs while she was still legally married too. Offset, that's no longer sports metaphors or playful rap comparisons. That's Intimate, that's painful, that's public. In one sentence. Offset documented for the world that his wife, before the divorce was finalized, was carrying another man's child. There was resentment in that delivery. There was hurt. There was ego. There was judgment, all wrapped into a single bar. Because beneath the confidence, that line revealed something else. The timeline bothered him, the overlap between his marriage dissolving and Cardi's new life accelerating. That part clearly sat heavy. No matter how many interviews he gave claiming he was fine. No matter how many times he said he was at peace, that lyric told a different story. It showed that the transition from husband to outsider didn't feel clean. It showed that watching the next chapter begin before the previous one officially closed left a mark, and the public caught that emotion instantly. Debates exploded online. Some fans argued it was classic rap, competitive, exaggerated, theatrical. Others said it crossed into deeply personal territory that shouldn't have been immortalized on wax, because this wasn't just commentary about a breakup. This involved children. Real life, real timelines, real wounds. And then November 2025 arrived. Cardi welcomed a baby boy into the world, reportedly fathered by Stefan Diggs, that made for children for her. And with that birth announcement, the situation moved beyond speculation. It was reality. Offset's lyrics weren't just reactionary bars anymore, they were responses to something concrete. Now the narrative intensified again. Was this album a creative expression of heartbreak? Or was it a public attempt to reclaim dominance in a storyline that had slipped from his control? Because here's the thing about music, it amplifies emotion, and when emotion sounds this specific, this targeted, it rarely comes from indifference. By putting those words on record, Offset essentially confirmed that Cardi and Diggs weren't just tabloid noise in his world, they were present in his mind. Present in his art. Present in his unresolved feelings. And once an artist starts documenting pain in verses, it usually means the wound hasn't fully closed. The bigger question became, was this album closure? Or was it evidence that he was still very much haunted, not just by fame, but by losing Cardi for real? Because if the intent was to look unbothered, the bars told a very different truth. And once those lyrics started circulating on every blog, every reaction channel, every timeline, the saga officially entered its most personal chapter yet. And the culture was watching every move. 3 children with Offset, 1 with the new man, and the timeline, that's what made it explosive. The conception reportedly landed right in the middle of active divorce proceedings that hadn't been finalized yet. Legally still married, emotionally already separated, publicly moving in different directions. For Offset, who built a family legacy with Cardi B through culture, wave, and blossom, watching another man extend that family tree had to feel definitive in a way no tweet or podcast appearance could. Soften. Because this wasn't just about romance ending, this was about lineage shifting. The structure he helped create was still expanding, just not with him included. That's not social media embarrassment. That's structural loss. That's the kind of reality that echoes in quiet moments, the kind studio sessions and bravado can't fully drown out. When the album dropped, especially the track No Sweat, the audience response fractured exactly how you'd expect. On X, debates erupted over the Jordan versus Rodman comparison like it was an actual sports talk segment. Fans were arguing it with the same intensity you hear in barbershops on playoff weekends. Some praised the wordplay. They said regardless of personal drummer, the metaphor was sharp, competitive, confident, a headline bar. Others weren't impressed. They pointed out the irony that a man whose cheating history had been documented for years, across scandals, screenshots, and viral footage, was now positioning himself as the elite option. Calling yourself the GOAT hits different when your own actions are what push the person away. One user on X framed the entire situation as retaliation. They argued Offset wasn't offering introspection. He was spinning the block lyrically because he felt replaced, and that interpretation gained traction. But here's what really made this moment significant. The album did something bigger than deliver. PUNCHLINES. It cemented his emotions into a permanent public archive. A deleted tweet can disappear into the timeline. VOID. A podcast, quote, can be re-explained in a future interview, but a studio record, mixed, mastered, distributed, uploaded to every streaming platform? That's forever, searchable, quotable, REPLAYABLE. By embedding his frustration, pride, and competitive energy into no sweat, Offset ensured that his response to Cardi's new relationship would live alongside his catalog indefinitely. That's not a fleeting reaction. That's documentation. It signals something deeper than indifference. Because when you truly move on, you don't usually immortalize the situation in verse. You don't timestamp your hurt and press upload. You let silence do the talking. Instead, Offset chose permanence. He made it clear, in the most durable medium available to an artist, that he sees himself as the superior option, that he believes he was swapped out unfairly. That in his narrative, he's the franchise player who got replaced by a substitute. Whether the public agrees is secondary. What matters is that he wanted his version preserved, etched into the record, and that move alone suggests something powerful. This wasn't closure. It was positioning. Positioning himself as the standard, positioning Diggs as the downgrade, positioning the entire saga through his lens permanently, because once something is pressed into music, it stops being reactionary. It becomes legacy. And legacy moves don't come from emotional detachment. They come from wanting the last word. The question now isn't whether Offset feels something. The album already answered that. The real question is whether this chapter is finally ending, or if another response from Cardi, from Diggs, or from the culture itself is about to push this saga into an even louder phase. Because if history has shown anything about this triangle, it's that silence never lasts long, and the timing surrounding that album made everything 10 times more volatile. When Haunted by Fame dropped, Cardi B was visibly pregnant with Stefan Diggs' child. The divorce case between her and Offset was still crawling through the legal system. Nothing finalized. Nothing neatly wrapped up. Just 2 months earlier, Offset had sat down with Ebro and publicly admitted he ruined his marriage. He said he fumbled something real. He owned it, but then the album arrived, and instead of reconciliation energy, it sounded like retaliation. No olive branches. No humility woven into the bars, just lyrical artillery. It felt like he wasn't accepting responsibility anymore. He was keeping score, counting invisible points in a competition only he seemed to be playing. And that contradiction was loud. On one side, I messed up. On the other, you downgraded. That duality exposed the internal battle. A man who understood he caused the damage, but still felt wounded watching someone else move forward. A man who could admit fault in an interview, then spend an entire project, implying the prize lost value once it left his hands. That emotional tug-of-war was building pressure. And that pressure was about to explode on the biggest stage possible, because February 2026 didn't just bring football. It brought chaos. Super Bowl 60. If the Cardi Offset Diggs saga had been simmering for over a year through podcast quotes, subtle Instagram shade, and dis-leaning records, Super Bowl weekend was when the lid blew off the pot. The matchup? New England Patriots versus Seattle Seahawks. Diggs, wearing a Patriots jersey, took a tough loss. Final score, 29-13. But the scoreboard? That was background noise. The real headline unfolded off the field during Super Bowl weekend festivities. Diggs was spotted publicly with a woman identified as Pry. Multiple outlets quickly connected her to Offset, alleging she had previously been linked to him during past cheating rumors. Video footage surfaced online. In that clip, Pry was reportedly heard telling Diggs, "I love you." Double quotes, pause. Let that land. Cardi's current partner was now seen in public with a woman allegedly tied to Offset's old Side relationship history, the layers of overlap were dizzying. Ex-husband. New boyfriend. Alleged former fling. Super Bowl weekend. Cameras everywhere. It didn't feel real. It felt scripted. Like something from a reality series writers. Room that would get rejected for being too unrealistic. But it wasn't fiction. It was trending. Within minutes. Timelines detonated. Clips circulated at lightning speed. Sports media pages reposted it. Entertainment blogs framed it as betrayal. Fans dissected every frame. Was it intentional? Was it coincidence? Was it messy payback energy? Or just unfortunate optics? The speculation ran wild. Because in the context of everything, the album shots, the pregnancy, the divorce battle, the ego bruises, this wasn't just a random sighting. It looked symbolic. Diggs taking an L on the field was one thing, but being seen with someone allegedly tied to Offset's past, that turned the volume up to maximum. And suddenly the narrative wasn't just romantic tension anymore. It became strategic. Was this accidental crossover? Or was someone sending a message? The fallout was immediate and explosive. Sports commentators mentioned it. Gossip outlets amplified it. Reaction channels fed off it, and the triangle that had already been messy? Now it looked combustibly. Because once personal drama collides with Super Bowl weekend, the most watched sports event in America, it stops being niche gossip. It becomes national spectacle. And at that point, nobody involved could control the story anymore. The culture had it. And when the culture grabs a narrative like this, it doesn't go quietly. Then everything shifted fast right after Super Bowl weekend. Fans noticed something subtle but loud. Cardi B and Stefan Diggs had unfollowed each other on Instagram. No announcement. No statement. Just digital distance. Cardi had just hit the halftime stage alongside Bad Bunny, delivering a high-energy performance that should have dominated headlines. But instead of celebrating courtside after the game, reports said she left early. When ESPN caught up with her and asked about Diggs, she didn't give them drama. She gave them frost. Good luck. 2 words. No smile. No elaboration. No emotion. Then fans noticed something else. She wiped him from her Super Bowl weekend posts clean. As if he had never been part of the moment, and just when the situation was already overheating. Another layer dropped, unverified. Reports began circulating that Diggs allegedly brought another woman to his hotel room shortly after the game. Now, whether that claim was factual or fueled by rumor, it didn't matter in the court of public opinion. Because perception spreads faster than proof. And that allegation poured gasoline on an already raging fire. By February 9th, Entertainment Tonight confirmed that Cardi and Diggs had split. A source told the outlet they had recently broken up, though they added a soft qualifier. It might just be temporary while Cardi focused on her family. That, for now, left a tiny crack in the door, but the public behavior told a different story. This didn't look like a pause. It looked like a collapse. Cheating rumors. Public embarrassment. Super Bowl weekend drummer. Bad timing that almost felt scripted. Everything stacked up at once. And then there was Offset. Offset posted a cryptic W on his Instagram stories. Fans immediately translated it. Who won now? It wasn't subtle. It wasn't accidental. It felt like a victory lap. For over a year, Offset had been labeled the bitter ex, the jealous one, the man who cheated and lost the baddest in the game. He'd been roasted, memed, analyzed, called insecure. And now, the very relationship he'd been shading in interviews and on records had detonated. Publicly, Offset was reportedly seen out celebrating afterward, smiling wide in club appearances. One report on X even claimed he had lost $1 million betting on the 49ers that weekend, yet still appeared to be in a phenomenal mood once news of the breakup spread. Losing 7 figures and still grinning? That tells you something, because it suggested the emotional win meant more than the financial loss. And here's where the irony becomes almost poetic. Offset, the man whose infidelity fractured his marriage, was now watching Cardi's new relationship unravel under cheating. Accusations dot the same issue, the same pattern, and to make it messier, the alleged involvement of a woman previously linked to Offset only deepened the symbolism. It felt circular. Like karma doing laps, like a storyline folding back on itself. For months, Offset had been called jealous. Now he looked vindicated, but vindication doesn't erase history, because even if Diggs stumbled, it doesn't rewrite the reasons Cardi left in the first place. And that's what makes this entire saga so layered. Was Offset celebrating because he still loved her? Because his ego felt restored? Or because the narrative no longer painted him as the only villain? The Super Bowl weekend didn't just end a relationship. It shifted power dynamics. Suddenly, the man who looked replaced was standing upright again in public opinion, at least for a moment. But here's the thing about public wins. They don't always translate to private healing, and just because one relationship collapsed doesn't automatically rebuild the one that came before it. Now, the culture is watching one question more closely than ever. Was this breakup a full circle moment? Or just another chapter in a saga that refuses to stay finished? That whole situation turned into the exact kind of full circle karma the internet lives for. The timeline, the optics, the emotions, it was the perfect storm for social media to latch onto and dissect from every possible angle. And, as expected, the internet went into overdrive. After the chaos of Super Bowl weekend, Stefan Diggs reappeared online, but not with a press statement, not with clarification, and definitely not with explanations. Instead, he chose the classic celebrity move, cryptic quotes. One post read, "Gratitude and fear cannot coexist. Control what you can control, comments disabled." Every single one of them. That move alone spoke volumes. Turning comments off in the middle of a viral storm is rarely about peace, it's about containment. The message felt like someone trying to center themselves while everything around them was spiraling. It read controlled, measured, almost rehearsed. But the timing made it impossible to separate from the headlines swirling around him. Meanwhile, CardiB handled things in a completely different way, and it couldn't have been more emotional. On February 11th, during the opening night of her Little Miss Drama tour in California, Cardi stood in front of thousands of fans and visibly struggled to hold it together. Mid-show, she paused and told the crowd, "I don't want to get emotional. Don't let nobody take your happiness away from you." She never said Diggs' name. She never said Offset's name. But she didn't need to. The timing was louder than any direct call-out ever could be. Here was a woman performing through heartbreak in real time, processing personal chaos under stage lights while the world speculated in the comments section. At that exact same moment, the father of her 3 children, Offset, was throwing what many saw as subliminal shade online. And the father of her baby boy was being photographed at the biggest sporting event of the year alongside someone tied to a very public split. The optics were messy. The emotions were raw. The internet was watching every move. Then, just when it felt like the situation couldn't get more layered, one small detail changed everything. Cardi followed Offset back on Instagram. Now, in regular life, that might not mean much, but in celebrity culture, a refollow after months of tension carries weight. It doesn't confirm reconciliation. It doesn't promise anything, but it signals something. It suggests the ice might be thinning. The communication channel might be reopening. The door that was firmly shut might now be slightly cracked. And people noticed immediately. Social media detectives screenshotted it. Blogs ran with it. Comment sections exploded. Because when it comes to Cardi and Offset, history matters. This is not a couple with a clean break narrative. Their relationship has always been intense, dramatic, public, and cyclical. In 2018, after a highly publicized split, they found their way back to each other within months. In 2020, when divorce papers were filed, Cardi withdrew them just weeks later. The pattern isn't speculation. It's documented. They've separated. They've reconciled. They've repeated the cycle more than once. So now the question, dominating headlines and timelines alike, is simple. Does Offset have another shot? Supporters of that theory point directly to history. Every major fallout between them has eventually cooled. Time has been their unofficial mediator, and every time the world declared it done for. Good, something shifted behind the scenes, but this time feels different. This time there are more layers, more public tension, more outside players, more visible emotion. Cardi standing on stage fighting tears. Wasn't performance drama, it felt real. And Diggs' composed Instagram message didn't read like someone celebrating a new beginning. It read like someone in damage control mode. Offset, on the other hand, has spent the past year expressing himself through music bars, social posts, and subtle jabs that fans interpret as references. His presence has never truly disappeared from her orbit, even during her rumored new chapter, and now with that Instagram refollow. The speculation machine is fully activated. Is it forgiveness? Is it co-parenting maturity? Is it nostalgia? Or is it the first step toward another reunion? The truth is, no one outside their inner circle knows. No one outside their inner circle knows. But the signs, the quotes, the tears, the timing, the follow button are all puzzle pieces in a story still unfolding. What makes the situation so captivating isn't just the drama, it's the human element underneath it. Love complicated by fame, breakups amplified by millions of spectators, healing attempts documented in real time, and, in the center of it all, to people with a long history of breaking apart and pulling back together. Right now, nothing is confirmed. No reconciliation announcement. No public statements. No official declarations. Just subtle moves, emotional performances. And one Instagram follow that reignited everything. So the real question isn't just whether Offset can get Cardi back. It's whether this chapter is a repeat of history or the first time the cycle actually breaks. Because if their past has taught us anything, it's that with Cardi and Offset, the story is never over until they say it is. When Cardi walks away, history shows that Offset doesn't exactly disappear, he circles. And somehow, time after time, that invisible pull between them drags them back into the same emotional orbit. At the center of that pull are their three children, Culture Kiari Cephas, Wave Set Cephas, and Blossom Cephas. No matter how explosive the headlines become, that shared foundation hasn't fractured publicly. Even as divorce proceedings continue moving through the legal system, their co-parenting dynamic has reportedly remained steady and respectful. That family bond has always acted like an unseen force. The quiet factor that keeps relinking them even after dramatic public splits. And now, after the implosion surrounding Stefan Diggs, that gravitational pull feels stronger, not weaker. In the days immediately following the Super Bowl frenzy, chatter began spreading across X, formerly Twitter. Multiple posts claimed that Cardi B allegedly reached out to Offset to sit down and have a serious conversation, reportedly for the sake of their children. Now, no verified source confirmed exactly what that discussion involved. Was it emotional closure? Was it logistical co-parenting planning? Was it something deeper that hasn't surfaced yet? The specifics remain private, but what people couldn't ignore was the timing. If the reports are accurate, Cardi initiating contact at the exact moment her situation with Diggs was unraveling says a lot, not necessarily about romance, but about connection. There's clearly still a tether between them, whether that tether is woven from shared history, parenthood, habit, or unresolved feelings. It exists, and the internet noticed the shift immediately. Public opinion, which had heavily criticized Offset over the past year, began tilting in a different direction. After the Super Bowl fallout, X timelines were flooded with debates about whether Cardi and Offset should just run it back for the stability of their family. Facebook posts about Cardi refollowing Offset on Instagram exploded with engagement. Thousands of fans dissected that single click like it was a coded announcement. Some saw forgiveness, others saw curiosity. At the very least, many agreed it meant the bridge between them wasn't fully burned. Then another narrative started gaining traction, that Offset somehow got the last laugh for nearly a year. Sections of social media painted him as the bitter ex, the one throwing subliminals, dropping emotional bars in music, and looking unable to move forward. But after the Diggs situation collapsed publicly, some corners of the internet flipped the script, suggesting Offset had been patient while circumstances circled back in his favor. But that's only one side of the story. The case against reconciliation is powerful. Arguably more powerful, Cardi has been crystal clear across interviews, live streams, and public statements over multiple years. She is exhausted by the cycle that defined her marriage. She has repeatedly said she's done with the pattern of betrayal followed by apologies, grand gestures, and temporary fixes. She hasn't spoken vaguely about it either. She's openly described the impact of Offset's past infidelity as something that went beyond emotional hurt. She's said it affected her physically. She's admitted that staying, as long as she did, caused regret. Those aren't casual comments. They're heavy admissions. In early 2025, when she was publicly stepping out with Diggs, Cardi made it known that her fatigue with Offset wasn't limited to cheating scandals. She suggested that the issues between them were layered, complicated in ways that couldn't be solved by flowers, apologies, or viral romantic stunts. That detail matters because while social media loves a redemption arc, Cardi's own words over the years suggest something deeper was fractured. And once trust erodes at that level, rebuilding it isn't about nostalgia, it's about real structural repair. Then there's the question of how Offset has navigated this entire stretch. Over the past year, his presence online and in music often felt pointed. Lyrics that fans interpreted as subliminal messages, social posts that seemed strategically timed, appearances that kept him in the conversation without directly addressing anything. To some, that showed a man still emotionally invested. To others, it looked like someone unable to let go. Perception depends entirely on which side of the internet you're standing on. What complicates everything is that neither of them has issued a definitive statement closing the door. There's no official never again, no legally finalized split announced with finality. Just ongoing proceedings and shifting digital signals. And in celebrity culture, subtle signals speak loudly. The refollow, the alleged private meeting, the timing after the Diggs fallout, the emotional tour moment, the quiet but visible co-parenting unity. Each piece alone could mean nothing. Together, they create speculation. Still, reconciliation isn't just about timing or optics. It would require confronting years of public and private tension. It would mean addressing patterns Cardi has openly said caused her damage. And it would require Offset to demonstrate change in a way that goes beyond symbolic gestures. That's the part fans can't measure right now. What's visible is this: a family still connected, a history that refuses to fade quietly. And to people who have repeatedly defied expectations before, but there's also something new in the air, a sense that Cardi may genuinely be prioritizing peace over passion this time. Her recent statements suggest clarity, growth, boundaries. And that makes the outcome far less predictable than past cycles. So the real tension isn't just will they get back together? It's this: is the gravitational pull of shared history stronger than the resolve born from repeated heartbreak? Because while the internet debates winners and losers, laughs and karma, what's actually unfolding is far more complicated, a mix of family, pride, vulnerability, and unfinished chapters. And until either Cardi or Offset speaks plainly, every follow, every lyric, every public appearance will continue to be treated like a headline waiting to happen. A man genuinely prepared for a real reconciliation would likely be out here showing growth, proving maturity, and quietly doing the internal work required to rebuild trust. Instead, for the past 12 months, Offset has been doing the opposite. He dropped diss records, posted and deleted subliminal posts across social media, compared himself to Michael Jordan on a nationally syndicated podcast, and seemed downright satisfied watching Cardi's new relationship collapse publicly. His reactions to the Super Bowl chaos, the mocking posts, the nightclub appearances, the unmistakable smirk, felt less like the behavior of a man ready to sit down and do the hard work of reconciliation and more like someone keeping meticulous score. Even his August 2025 interview with Ebro Darden, where he admitted his faults, was immediately undermined by the album he dropped just 2 months later. Packed with lyrics targeting Cardi and her new partner with surgical precision, Offset's romantic moves since the split added yet another layer of complication. At the end of 2024, he was linked to model Melanie Jada during a New Year's trip to Dubai, boasting publicly about seeing more than 3 women since parting ways with Cardi, framing it as lost one, got another, and another. Then, in February 2026, blogs reported he was connected to Sky Marlene, rumored to be Stefan Diggs' ex-girlfriend. That move set off a wave of speculation that his dating decisions were less about genuine romance and more about tit-for-tat retaliation. The symmetry was almost too obvious. Diggs photographed with Offset's alleged ex, and now Offset linked to Diggs' former flame. It had turned into a high-stakes chess match, where the pieces weren't pawns, they were real people, and the board was everyone's Instagram feed. Sources speaking to Entertainment Tonight suggested that the Cardi-Diggs split might be temporary, potentially leaving the door open for Offset before he even gets a real chance to act. But even if Diggs is permanently out of the picture, Cardi's focus as of mid-February 2026 appears to be elsewhere: her Little Miss Drama tour, raising her 4 children, and rebuilding herself emotionally, not circling back to a marriage she has already walked away from twice. One op-ed from Madame Noor framed the situation perfectly: any reunion between Cardi and Diggs could be temporary, creating a narrow window for Offset to make a move. But the piece also stressed that Cardi's priority has been her own happiness and healing. That makes a full reconciliation with Offset, at least in the near term, a long shot. No matter how the internet spins the story. It's the tension at the heart of this saga: past patterns, public drama, family ties, and personal growth all colliding on one very visible stage, and every move watched and broadcast across millions of feeds. Offset might technically have another opportunity, but having a chance and actually capitalizing on it are 2 completely different games. What's indisputable at this moment is that Offset has never truly released CardiB, not once. Not even close. Every podcast appearance, every track he dropped, every impulsive tweet he posted and then deleted, every smirk outside a nightclub after the Super Bowl, every single one of those moments tells the same story: a man still emotionally tied to a relationship he dismantled himself, watching from the sidelines as the woman he lost builds a new life piece by piece, swinging between admitting his mistakes and stewing over the consequences, depending entirely on his mood that day. Super Bowl weekend didn't create this attachment. It just shoved it into the brightest, most unforgiving spotlight in the world, letting everyone witness it in full clarity. Whether this attachment turns into a reconciliation depends on one person, and it's not Offset. It's Cardi. So far, everything she's said and done suggests one clear reality: she may have nudged the door open slightly by following him back on Instagram, but stepping all the way through that door would mean returning to the exact situation she's spent the last 2 years trying to escape. Offset might not be over CardiB, he might have a shot, but ultimately, the shot is hers to grant, and if her past experiences are any guide, she knows exactly how that story ends every single time. Thank you for watching. If you want to dive into another jaw-dropping celebrity saga like this one, click on one of the boxes on your screen right now.